What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy right here, man. MMA Reloaded. We are live and direct. We are back on the mic. We are back for episode 58 of MMA Reloaded Raw Talk, man. And you best believe today, I am glad to be back on the mic. I'm pleasure to be back on the mic. All the shit that's happened with Instagram, forget that. You can sweep that shit under the rug because tonight, I am back, and that is what matters, is that I can keep entertaining you guys and being the best out there right now in the world of mixed martial arts, social media. So, folks, you're tuned in. Karate Combat. Bro, that is one word. That is the promotion that needs to be on your mind right now. Yeah, with my guest tonight. Because my guest tonight is Karate Combat's very own middleweight, 5-0 inside the Karate Combat pit, Ross the Turbo Levine. Bro, if you don't know who Ross Levine is and you don't watch Karate Combat, tune into this one and you'll learn a lot about him, who he is and his style. So folks, sit back, relax, tune in, man. Yeah, we're going to do more introduction when Ross comes on the show. So folks, let's do the particulars. Let's not waste no time out here, bro. Woo! So particulars are all done, folks. Let's wait for Ross Levine to join the show. Turbo Ross Levine, man. Of course, we're coming off UFC Vegas 36 as well, folks. Respect to Derek Brunson, like him or not, or you wanted Darren Till to win, or you didn't want Darren Till to win. You have to admit Derek Brunson is now the prime. He is new and improved, prime and ready to challenge Israel Adesanya once again for the middleweight champion. That can never be denied, and that's for sure, man. Obviously, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett was was another standout as well. He knew what he needed to do to make an impact, yeah. And coming in 16-3, yeah, already such an impressive record for such a young man. And he's already, he already just made probably a big man splash to put Liverpool into this new era of MMA in the UFC, and that's with Paddy the Baddy Pimblett leading the charge. Also, man, respect to Meatball Molly McCann. What a performance by her, man. What a performance by Khalil Roundtree. Say what you want, about that oblique kick. All I have to say is it was a world fucking class. World class, my bro. Yeah? There is no doubt in hell that what Khalil Roundtree actually did to Modestas Bukauskas was calculating. Yeah, it was calculating. It was calculated. Yeah, it was just well timed, well placed. He knew that if he hit it in the right spot, it would be all over. And it was all over for Modestas Bukauskas. Bro, I have to say, the oblique kick should not be banned. It should be, embraced. And there should be this, obviously fighters need to be trained on how to block these sort of techniques. You can't really have a a dichotomy where you're one dimensional and you're not ready for such techniques like the calf kick, for example, or like the oblique. When they started introducing calf kicks, you saw how much damage it did to fighters. How much damage it did for the offensive fighter, and how much the fighter on the receiving end got damage. And then you saw it with when Uriah Hall blocked Chris Weidman's leg kick. Yeah, how he blocked it was he turned his leg around. Yeah, he turned his leg. He did something with his leg. So when Chris threw the kick, he blocked it by turning his leg over. So Chris kicked a different part of Uriah's leg, the harder part, which blocked the kick. And then you had this incident with Modestas Bukauskas. I don't call it an incident. I call it a world-class tactic. And we're going to talk to Chris, Ross Turbo Levine about this, and I want to get his opinion on this too. Is that it's not uncommon for fighters to get hurt. It's one of the most physical sports, physically demanding sports, you can ever have. You know what I'm saying? And so when a fighter does get kicked like that, man, yeah, it does. It kills. And you have to think that, if you're sort of, if you are Modestas Bukauskas, that shit will hurt. And you see, John Jones has been using that kick for a long time as well. So, folks, Robin's on the show. Let's get him on, man. Let's do this shit, bro. Yeah, I'm excited for this show. Hey, Russ.
How you doing?
How you doing, my brother? How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, of course I can. So, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who this is, yeah, and obviously you don't enter the pit as Ross Levine does. He is 5-0 in karate combat, and of course holds the record for fastest glory kickboxing knockout in welterweight history in glory kickboxing. Congratulations on those feats, bro. And of course, I want to also let you know, bro, that out of 180 episodes that I've done, you're the first karate combat athlete that I've had, bro.
That's awesome. So, that's awesome.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a real pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me. And I always like, I know you've spoken to a lot of different like sport karate guys as well. So it's an honor to kind of follow in their footsteps, especially like guys like Jody and, being a part of the show. So I'm happy to be on and represent myself and my brand, but also Karate Combat.
Yeah, definitely, man. And but I think, people want to get to know who Ross Levine is. So, if you want to rewind the tape for me, Russ, and tell me how did it all start for you in martial arts, and then leading into karate and, of course, kickboxing?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually never wanted to do martial arts. I was always like a super active kid and running around. My brother, was a couple years older, started martial arts before me. He came home one day with a trophy, and I was like, oh, I really want that. So I got into martial arts for all the wrong reasons, but ended up sticking with it. So I followed shortly in his footsteps afterwards. And so I started when I was about 7 years old, and then kept training, started doing some sport karate. And then I met Jody when I was 16. But I had some great training partners prior to then. I trained with guys like Willie Marshall, Hakeem Walker. And then was brought over to Jody, and then the rest is kind of history. My career just took off.
No, definitely, man. And then, as you now competing in the pit at Karate Combat, and when I think a lot of hardcore martial arts fans were really excited to see that karate was actually being brought back into the mainstream and back to the fans. So it could really tell the story of how good it actually is. And when you got the chance to compete, Ross, in the pit, what were your first impressions of karate combat? And as a brand, and then of course reinventing karate into the modern era. What were your first impressions when you stepped in?
Well, before I even got into the pit, having the opportunity getting the offer from them to say, hey, we're watching you. We really would like you to come represent, American karate and kickboxing and sport karate and bring that, knowing that I had a martial arts background. So I started watching a lot of the fights and the fights from the past. And I was really intrigued. It's different. It's unique. But for me, my first impression was, all right, if I'm going to do this, there's going to be a lot of new things that I'm going to have to work on, like my first time with little gloves, my first time, not being able to kick the legs, only the calf, learning that you can grab the belt and throw, like there's some ground and pound, like all that stuff was very new to me. So, but first impression wise, the guys are, just because we get used to seeing MMA and we get used to seeing like point karate and kickboxing, the karate combat has a niche that no one's ever seen before. And the guys that are on the roster are not just like random karate guys. These guys are the elite of the elite in like WKF karate fighting. So these guys are all like, some of them are Olympic level. A lot of them are like national champions, European champions, South American champions. Like these guys are no joke and they're good at what they do. So for me coming in, I think there's a lot of hype behind me, but these guys are good, man. Like I'm going to have to change and adapt just like I've done before with like Glory Kickboxing and now this.
100%. And when you said about, I just want to touch on what you said about not having to kick the legs and only the calf. I want to get your opinion on something because UFC Vegas 36 just and I don't know if you saw the show and there was an oblique kick KO. For me it's a martial arts technique, and I okay, cool. It's a more damaging to opponent, to guys on the receiving end rather than other techniques. But do you feel that techniques like that should be banned or restricted?
I do. Yeah. I think all strikes to the front of the knee should be illegal in that fashion, like that stomping fashion, whether it's, an oblique kick coming from underneath or a side kick down to the knee. For one, it's not the responsibility of the kicker. It's the responsibility of the defender. And sometimes like there's really no good way to defend against it. So like I made a post yesterday. I'm like, can we end like these kicks to the front of the knee? And I've been getting some backlash in my DMs. People are like, what do you mean? It's a kick, it's a fight. And it's like, well, yes, it's a fight. And yes, I want to hurt my opponent and finish my opponent and put them away. But, as a martial artist, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm an idiot for saying this, but I'm not looking to injure my opponent and keep them away from work, their family, force them to have surgery, like miss out on their career, potentially. Like this guy's career might be over. We don't know. You don't know what kind of damage he did to his knee. And then from a technique point, there's really no good way to check it. So people are like, well, what about calf kicks or low kicks, or if you round kick the side of the knee? Okay, there's been skills to develop to check those kicks, right? You can't check a side kick to the front of the knee the same way. You just can't do it. You can't move back because if I straighten my knee and back up, I still get clipped. If I step into it, I get hyperextended. If I turn, I lose stability on the inside. There's no good way. And I think the ultimate answer that I've been giving people is the reason why they should be taken out is because let's say you and I are fighting and I'm losing, right? I'm losing 2 rounds. I got 1 round left. I have nothing for you. You're kicking my ass all over the place. In the back of my head, I know, I'm going to sit back, let him come to me, and I'm going to stomp on his knee. So now if I stomp on your knee and you were winning the fight, I can win because you can't continue. Honestly, I think that's ridiculous. I don't know. It's not for me. There's no respect in it.
I mean, the first real exposure I really had to that technique and kicking like that was John Jones. And the way he was using it was not to hurt his opponent, but to really keep the distance. I think when he was fighting shorter guys, especially, and you felt that and you felt that guys were getting inside on him too quick. He used the oblique kick or the front side to the shin or to the front knee to really just keep his distance. That was the first exposure I really had, so I didn't really feel there was a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the oblique kick, like when you're using the like the bottom side of your foot to the shin, right? Because that's a way of like, it's a stop. It's a firm stop, right? By doing that, you're not going to cause damage. It's for distance control. That's like in Kung Fu Sanda, you'll see fighters do that to kind of check their position, to make sure. It's a funny story. I was training with Joe Schilling. Joe Schilling was, amazing kickboxer, and now in Bellator MMA, like ridiculous. That was one of the most memorable butt whoopings I've ever took in my life. But Joe Schilling was oblique kicking my shin, right?
Oh.
So every time with his rear leg. So every time he would oblique kick, I would pull back. And then, so if you pull back, you have to then step back forward. And he would use that timing to hit me with like a 1-2. So he would throw the oblique kick to get me to pull back. And then when I re-engage, that's when he'd hit me. So I was like, man, that's brilliant. But he wasn't kicking the front of my knee, and he wasn't disrupting like the structure. He was making me move my base. That's totally different. And that should be allowed. But we're talking about something that could really injure someone and like end their career. I'm not okay with that.
No, so obviously, like when you do leg kick, and we've seen it, of course, with the calf kick. And I saw it with Chris Weidman against Uriah Hall when Chris Weidman broke his leg. And you do get those inadvertent times where a fighter can injure themselves after being defended and parried off a kick. Do you think that with karate combat they do, you can only kick the calf, and you see how the referee does really pay attention to where they are kicking, which is what I love, because I feel that the referee needs to be, your eyes need to be just, do you feel that it should be like that in MMA, with all the injuries that have happened?
Well, it's tough because, the calf kick is legal, and I think the calf kick should be legal. It's a legitimate technique. You can defend against it. The problem is the fighter, the person who's throwing the technique is at risk, right? You're looking to attack with your shin on someone else's potentially shin. Like there's not a lot of cushion there. So we're talking a couple inches difference of hitting the calf or hitting the shin. So that almost evens the playing field, because you could do a lot of damage or you can cause a lot of damage to yourself. It's, the same thing with a low kick. Like I can do a lot of damage throwing a low kick, but if it gets checked, that's kind of on me, right? That's where the side kick to the knee really does. There's no balance. I'm either going to so you see the first time, the only consequence is you miss, right? So Khalil Roundtree, and this is no disrespect to him, I'm a fan. I like Roundtree. I was a fan since he knocked out Gokhan Saki, he was awesome. But he was planning that. He missed the first time, reset, and then he stomped his knee. I was like, oh man, it was just so disappointing. It was the
distance though, Russ, because he was literally like this. Yeah. I mean, when you're pretty much in the pocket, what are your options? Because of course in MMA you can either shoot for takedown. But if you're a striker and like yourself, and in karate combat you can do takedowns. But a guy like you, and what I loved about your last fight was that you strategically used the low kick, which is why I asked you the question. And what are your options if you are pretty much like this with your opponent?
Well, with MMA, all of those striking realms and all those ranges are an option. So, I mean, you're in clinch range. If you're not a grappler and you're not going to take somebody down, you've got your clinch, like your Thai plum. You've got knees, elbows, foot sweeps, little things like that. Or you disengage, or you wrestle. In karate combat, you can't collar tie, but you can grab and you can throw. So there's more like, you're going to see more like judo throws in karate combat. You can grab the belt. Your hands just have to be opposite. So I can't double leg, I can't single leg, I can't bear hug, but I can grab the belt and a leg. You can grab the head and the belt. and like hip toss, sotogari, like all sorts of different trips and throws. So you'll see that. And I think that's why the thigh kick has been eliminated from karate combat, because they want to see the distance, the explosion, the throw, and then the ground and pound. So it's interesting, man. It's unique. I'm really excited to continue. I started training some judo, so I'd be prepared for some of those guys. So I'm really interested to like keep learning and progressing as a martial artist.
I mean, of course, I want to touch on that with you later on in the show, because I want to talk about your last fight and, of course, break it down round by round, which I love to do because I watched it a couple of times now, heading into our conversation, heading into the podcast, and I wanted to sort of really just break it down round by round. And yeah, I mean, I'll touch on the fight a bit later on, Rose, and but I have to ask, as a martial artist, of course, and now I come from that, what does karate mean to you as a fighter, and of course as a person?
Yeah, I mean, without martial arts, I mean, I'm not really sure I'd be in the same position I'm in today. And I'm very fortunate to, I've got a family. I'll be getting married next month, and 2 months. 2 months. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, just being very grounded, and I've gone through school. I've reached my doctorate for physical therapy. So the ability for me to be grounded in my education and like always have something to keep me like stable and motivated and humble and just ready to learn. I mean, martial arts has been a piece of every phase of my life. And if it wasn't there, I'm not really sure what path I would have been on. So not to say that I was a troublemaker or a bad kid, but would I have gone to the level that I'm at right now without having those values like instilled in me since I was a little kid? No, probably not. So yeah, I attribute everything, all of my, success and everything that I've gained, up until this point is thanks to martial arts and the things I've learned from that.
Yeah, I love that, man. And of course, at Karate Combat, you have guys like Bas Rutten and Leo Machida and George St. Pierre. And how does that make you feel to have, of course, legends like those at Karate Combat affiliated with the brand? And of course, you had a shout out from George St. Pierre. How does that feel to see those legends back affiliated with martial arts, and of course appreciating what you do inside the pit?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you're talking about three of the most recognized martial artists in, combat sports, with Bas being, one of the first UFC heavyweight champions and world pancrase champion. And he's a character. So like everybody knows his face, his antics, his humor, and then someone obviously as big as George St. Pierre. And then, but a lot of people didn't recognize GSP as a martial artist. They just saw him as like, he was the guy that brought that wrestling to the UFC. He wore his gi and the headband and stuff like that, but his like karate didn't really come out, but you just knew that he was a martial artist. Right. But, and then when Machida came to the scene, then it was like this, oh my God, he's so unorthodox, and then it's like, no, it's not unorthodox, it's just karate. So, to have those figures be like corresponding with Karate Combat, and then of course to get the praise from guys like that was truly unexpected. And but it just validates where I'm at. I've always been told that I have all the skills, and I've always been, my coaches and my instructors and my teammates, my family, friends, they've all kind of said the same things about me. But to hear it from guys like that who have been there, done that, the elite of the elite, it just validates, what I already hoped about myself, so it's definitely a good feeling. But now it's, the pressure is on me to kind of prove them right, so I got to go out there and do my thing.
100%, 100%, man. And now, 5-0 inside Karate Combat, 3 seasons. How did that, of course, we talk about the physical standpoint inside the pit, but then you also have the standpoint inside the mind and mentality. As they say, 90% physical, 90% mental, 10% physical, right? And how does that make you feel being undefeated? And do you feel a certain type of pressure when you do fight, because you have that undefeated record to defend?
I'm not attached to my record at all. I'm not afraid to lose, and I think having that, not, or I should say, not having that fear of losing is actually what keeps me so free in the ring or in the pit or whatever it might be. If you go in there thinking, what if I lose? You start fighting not to lose instead of fighting to win. And we've seen that with a lot of great champions. Unfortunately, sometimes they start to protect what they've already created instead of going out there to just, do what they've trained to do their whole lives. So I'm not attached to my record. If I do this long enough, the chances are I'm going to lose, and that's part of the game. There has to be a winner, there has to be a loser. That's just the way it is. So the less I focus on that, I feel like the better off I am, the better I do. I just focus on what I can control, right? I can't control what my opponent's going to do. I don't know how their training is. I just anticipate everyone's training just as hard as me. And if I have a really good camp where I'm creating growth constantly and I go in there just free mind, and I think Machida was talking about in my fight, empty mind, right? Is just whoever has the empty mind and can just go and be free is the one who's going to be successful. So I just focus on that and just do what I've been trained to do my whole life.
Oh, man. And we talk about your last fight, and we talk about what I saw from you, of course, and I want to talk about round for round and how you actually went on to win. So I think if people saw the first round, you're like, how the hell did Ross Levine come out with the win? Because you actually came back later on in the fight to win it. And how did you feel, Ross? So in the first round, of course, he was every time you would engage, he would get a takedown. Did that frustrate you at the end of the first, or did it give you sort of a light bulb at the top of your head and say, you're going into the second, this is what you have to do to win?
Yeah, we certainly prepared for, I think if I was my opponent, I would do what my opponent tried to do. I would try and stay really far away from me, bridge the gap, and try and take me down. So we had planned for that. So once I realized that, he did it right off the rip. I didn't expect it to be that soon that he tried to take me down. So I was like, oh, okay, this is how the whole fight's going to go. I thought maybe he was going to engage with me a little bit more. I know he was training with a lot of the top Russian like heavyweights in the region. Like he was training with Russian guys that are in the UFC and won championship and stuff like that. So he was getting some MMA experience and doing like boxing. So I thought maybe, sometimes when fighters, especially like when I came onto the scene and there was a lot of hype behind me, whether it was deserved or not, it was there. So sometimes people have that ego of like, I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to knock out the knockout artist. So I was thinking like, maybe he's going to exchange with me because that's what I want. I want him to exchange so I can knock him out. And he didn't. So I was like, all right, now I'm going to have to show what I've worked on. So the first round was just kind of like, it just instilled what I already knew was going to happen. It just happened sooner than I thought. So I was able to land a couple good shots and then start working on my frames. And once I shut his takedowns, he didn't take me down at all the rest of the fight. So from that point, I was able to start working my distance, my pressure. I wish I would have been a little bit more active, go with my strikes. But probably subconsciously there was some nerves and, just dealing with the new environment. I was learning as I was doing it, so I'd never been in a pit before. I never fought with small gloves. I've never grappled. So I was literally learning on the job. So I was, when I went back and watched it the first time, I was upset with myself. And then I had to watch it a couple more times. And I was proud of my progress from round 1 to round 2 to round 3. I got better and better and better. And I'm excited to pick up now where I left off in my next fight.
Ross, I remember when I DM'd you and then you go to me, I wasn't impressed with my last performance. I go, why? in the second, I think, later on in the fight, second round, you came out beautifully. You pressured straight off the bat. I think those low kicks were your best weapon to sort of neutralize him. And I think after he saw how you were picking in the shots, he sort of became hesitant, and then you landed the high kick.
Yeah.
which I think was probably the most prolific striker of the fight. And you know, how did you feel then as in the second and third round where you gained that confidence and started to feel your kicks and feel your shots? Because you started feinting a lot and switching stances, which I knew you were getting confident as the fight went on. How was that? How were you feeling then in that second and third?
Yeah. So when I went back to my corner in the second round, my coach just told me, hey, relax, just shut down the takedown and keep your feints going. And then he's like, start opening up a little bit more. He's like, get comfortable, get more playful. It's funny you said that because someone else had messaged me and someone also from the sport karate world. And they were like, as soon as you went right leg forward and started like sport karate bouncing, they're like, this fight's over. So that's kind of how I felt. I just started getting comfortable, and I just had to figure out. The first round was kind of like, all right, which of my weapons are going to be successful and which of them aren't. And sometimes I think my best weapons I had to throw out. I couldn't box, I couldn't throw my low kick the way I wanted to. So in the second round, I had to throw it out and be like, listen, I want to do this stuff, but I can't. So I have to shift from what I want to do to what I need to do. And that was the turning point, I needed to kick his legs. I needed to close the distance and just stay pressuring and shut down his takedown. And I didn't get to box as much as I wanted to. I didn't get to throw combinations the way I wanted to, but I needed to fight the way I fought in order to win that.
100%. And then, of course, you came out with the win and 5-0. And it's one of those things, Ross, where I think it relates back to mentality. And when a fighter knows he is behind at the end of the first round or, at the beginning of the fight and probably wants to figure out a way to come back, how does that play on a fighter's mind? Because does it react differently to different types of fighters? Be it if you come into a fight confidently and you lose the first round, it may play on you differently than it would if you weren't that confident coming in. Does it have a lot to do with mentality of a fighter?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to be calm in situations like that. There was no urgency. I actually still felt like I won the first round. Even though he took me down a couple of times, but I also controlled the pace. I did more damage. I think I threw more techniques and landed more techniques. So I think overall, if you take away the takedowns, I still won the round. So takedowns are not as high as damage and pressure on the scoring criteria. So even though I got taken down a couple of times, I still went back to my corner thinking, okay, I think I still won that round, but it was close. So now it was just make changes, I know what I'm capable of, and I know that I have that, it's only going to take one shot, to put people away. But I just had to make sure I was systematic and just was disciplined throughout the entire fight. We talk about it all the time in our gym, is like having the difference between short-term discipline and long-term discipline. Sometimes, even though you have a game plan, if it doesn't work in the first minute, you can't just throw it out and say, screw it. You got to see it out long-term and make sure that you're giving it a chance to be effective. And that's what we did. We just stayed calm and worked it in. And I found little openings for, I found the high kick in the third round. Unfortunately, he was saved by the wall. It was just, and he was tough, man. The kid was just tough. So what are you going to do?
Because he got cut as well, and at the beginning of the second, you can see the cut was actually really bothering him. So that's why I think he was hesitant as well. So it kind of gave you a lot more of an advantage in terms of fatigue, and you were, I think, the better conditioned athlete going into the later rounds. So yeah, man. Now once again, Ross, congratulations.
Thank you.
I know a championship when it comes to feet. But then, if we look and we flip the script and we turn the page, Glory kickboxing. What really prompted the for you to compete at Glory Kickboxing? How did you feel when you got the call to go and compete?
So I knew that when I transitioned over to full contact kickboxing, It's actually a really cool story because I've always been a fan of like K1, and I remember when I was a kid watching like the K1 Grand Prix with my dad, and like it was always really cool. And then Glory came out. Well, I think it was called It's Showtime first, and then
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then they were bought out by Glory. So I always watched Glory, and I was always a big fan of that style of fighting. So when I went to full contact kickboxing, I was like, I think this is where I want to go, and those are the best in the world. So in every athletic endeavor that I've ever done, especially in combat sports, my goal is always top. Like I want to fight the best in the world. If I win, awesome. That's great. Good test. If I lose, I lost against the best in the world. I just want to test my mettle. I want to see where I stand. I'm not sad. I'm satisfied with, if I'm not the best, I'm not the best. But you never know where you're at unless you challenge the best. Like I want to know, where do I stack up? Am I as skilled as I think I am? I work my ass off in, training and learning and doing different things. I take care of my body. Like, let me test myself against the best in the world. So, when I got the opportunity to fight for Glory, it was like, here it is. And it's funny because like a year, almost to the date, a year before that, I was at a Glory event in New York. And I had a buddy of mine. I stood by the ring with my hand up and we took a picture. And my comment, like my caption on that picture was, sooner or later, I'll be in this ring with my hand raised. And it was almost like 2 years later to the date that I got called for Glory. And then I had my debut, and the rest was kind of history. Unfortunately, I didn't get to, see that career out, but times change.
And the debut was probably all it needed to create the reputation,
Yeah, it was, right place, right time.
How did that feel, Russ, to not only have your debut, where most fighters do sort of become hesitant and you're sort of moving back, and but for you to do that and set a record, how was that, and how did that feel for you personally?
I mean, of course it feels great, but it just, like I said it in my post-fight interview, it wasn't surprising to me, and one of the things that Jody had always taught me is, when you win, and especially if you train hard, and like whatever you get in the ring, you deserve it. Whether you win or lose, you deserved it, right? You either worked really hard and you got what you deserved, or you didn't work really hard, you lost and you got what you deserved. He's like, but whatever it is, act like you've been there before. I remember the first time I beat Raymond Daniels at a tournament. I called Jody real fast. I was all excited. I was like, hey, it was US Open. I was like, hey, Jody, I just won. I beat Raymond. He's like, oh yeah, I heard. He goes, do it again. And he hung up on me. And I was like, what the hell? So yeah, it was just one of those things. It's like, he's like, you should be prepared for this. So, leading up to that event in training, I was catching people with that all the time. We were drilling it, that left high kick all the time. So it was, when it came out, it was like, oh, all right. It's exactly how I wanted it to go. So, of course I was excited. I was super excited, but, it's something that we had been preparing for, and it just validated I belonged there,
Well, you already knew, basically.
Yeah. Well, or maybe at the time I didn't know, like, I didn't have a lot of experience. Every fighter I fight from this point forward in my career is going to have more experience than me. I had 2 professional fights going into my Glory debut. These guys all have like 40, 50 plus fights for the most part. And then I only had 11 amateur fights. So I didn't have a lot of experience in the ring. Now granted, my sport karate experience trumps most others, but I really didn't have the resume to be competing with some of these guys. So, there's definitely that thought in the back of my head of like, do I belong here? Like, am I as good as all these guys with the experience? And then once I got in the ring and I made my walk and I felt really comfortable, I'm like, all right, I've been on big stages. I've been with big lights and cameras and this and that. So once I got in the ring and everything else goes black and you start fighting, it's just like any other fight.
Oh God, 100%. And when you have that experience, Ron, as you said, in the nationals, in the regionals, in the opens, like you said, in karate, in the WKF, a lot of guys compete in the World Cup in Syria, and do you how important is that for a martial artist, for a striker, especially to have, before you go into the mainstream, into the pinnacle, to have that experience. Do you feel it's mandatory? It's necessary for a striker for a fighter to have that experience before going into the mainstream professionals?
I mean, I think the difference lies in experience. When you get guys that are the same skill level, generally the more experienced fighter will win. Generally, there's always, I mean, it's combat sports, things happen, but I think it also helps with like competition anxiety, and one of the things that I think all the years and years of sport karate and traveling and winning and losing, I've learned everything about competition from the time I was, 15 to now. I'll be 34 this year. Like, I've been there, I've done that. I've been on big stages, small stages. Like, I know every little corner of combat sports. So it's just another day for me. So people who don't have that experience it's easy to get caught up in the moment. You see it a lot in the UFC, like these guys that get called up for like last minute fights where they've been fighting, regional shows with like a couple hundred people in the stands. And all of a sudden you're in Vegas with a couple thousand people watching you in the UFC. It's like, it becomes bigger than what they're there to do, So as long as my best advice is focus on your job. You're there to do a job and you got to do it well, and don't get caught up in there's going to be time for all that. You just got to focus on what you do.
Of course, part of that you could say is training and gym environment, which I think plays a lot of part for a lot of fighters, is how well they adapt into their gym environment and what the environment's like in the gym. And because you have some fighters who say to me, it's a family environment in the gym, compared to a lot of guys who say, it's like military war camp in that gym, and how important is it? Of course, you said train with Jody and train with Joe Schilling. How important is it to have that environment in the gym where not only you have a reputation and a relationship with your coaches and training partners, but you can also have that environment to focus on task at hand?
Well, I think number one is you have to know your learning style, because everybody is going to adapt differently. Some people need that militant environment to succeed, where there's other fighters with equal skill that do not do well in that environment, so maybe they need someone who's a little bit more calm, a little bit more like X's and O's type of coach, as opposed to someone who's going to crack the whip. There's a lot of talented fighters in New York and a lot of fighters that came through Jody's school that couldn't handle it, and it's because they just didn't do well in that environment. Jody at that stage in his career, Jody was very tough, man. He was really hard to deal with, not just physically, but like emotionally, verbally. Like Jody was, but I was always the type of guy who just like, and I guess I thank my parents for it, but I would just shut up and I listen, and if you tell me to do this, yes, sir. And I do it, and I'm going to do it to please you and to make sure I know that if I listen and I do what I'm supposed to do, good things are going to happen. So I thrive in that situation. Now on the flip side, as I've gotten older, the gym that I'm at now, Pride Martial Arts, it's not a militant style. We don't have a lot of professional athletes in our gym. It's myself. We have another pro for Lion Fight, Doug Holland, who's a heavyweight. And we just had another professional come and join our gym now, Brian Bogue, who also fights for Lion Fight. It's three of us. That's it. Those are the pro athletes in the gym. Now we have a lot of amateurs and a lot of talented people. But one of the things that I attached to with my coach, Andrew Cornell, when I first came to the school, I bounced around a couple different gyms and wasn't really happy. He's a martial artist. So after every class, I remember the first bag class I took, at the end of the class, we stood there at attention and he kind of talked through a couple different things and called like mat chats, right? Kind of life stuff, right? Yeah. How you relate this. And there's a lot of like different sayings that he'll always bring up. And for whatever, I don't remember what the conversation was, but whatever it was resonated with me. And I was like, this is the stuff that I used to do for my students. And like, to be on the receiving end, it was like, I need this. Like, this is what I need right now. And I've never left. You know, I cross train at other gyms with, you know, other world champions. You know, I go up to Massachusetts and I teach class at Lozon MMA with Joe Lozon and like all the studs there. So I take classes with Jake Manini and Bill Newcomb at Hard Knocks Muay Thai, where there's, you know, lion fight world champions. I train with all the best guys in the region. But my home and what makes me comfortable every single day is Pride Martial Arts. And that's why I'm there full time. That's my gym, you know? So I think my advice to everyone else is you just have to know your learning style and go to that. You know, just because there's a gym with 10 world champions in it doesn't mean it's the place for you, and doesn't mean you can't be successful, right? You just have to find the right relationship and cultivate that.
Do you think that, you know, bouncing around to different gyms can benefit a fighter in some aspects of the sport rather than others?
I mean, I think bouncing around is probably a bad term. You know, when I said I was bouncing around, I was trying to find a home. And, you know, I went to a few different gyms in the area and I just didn't get a good feel from them. You know, one of them I really liked, Triforce MMA is a great school in Rhode Island. It's MMA school, but, and I love their head coach is amazing. Like Pete Jeffrey is great. I recommend all people to go try out their gym. But our schedule just didn't work out. So that was unfortunate. But I tried a couple different schools in the area, and none of them were really like a great fit, you know, for me to take my career to the next level. So, and then I found Pride and I was hooked immediately. So you just have to, in that sense, yeah, you got to find, you know, try different places and find what you like. But once you establish a home, I think if you see like across the board, you don't see world champions that have gone to different gyms over and over and changed camps. And like, you got to find what works and stick with it and fill in the gaps a little bit here and there. But I think that relationship and that trust is important when you're in the ring.
For sure. 100%. That's words of wisdom right there.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure, Russ. And you know, I think you're totally right. I think gym loyalty is so important. I think, you know, using your own initiative to find a gym that's right for you and stay there, and really try to build something there is important. So I think that's what it's all about. My whole theory, you know, martial arts is commitment and dedication, and that's what it takes. So it's up to you as a fighter to make the most of what you have. You know, and you know, Russ, I think you're a great example of that, man. You know, so I wanna say thank you, and of course, you know, all the respect to you, man, and good luck in your career. And yeah, man, I mean, would it be an interest for you to go back to kickboxing at a stage?
Potentially. I mean, you know, right now I'm signed with Karate Combat. You know, I was released from my Glory contract just because they were stagnant. You know, thankfully they're, you know, good for Glory. They just had an awesome card last night. But I think on the American side of things, it's kind of slowed down with COVID and everything. So it's been hard for them to branch back out to the Americans. So I was extremely thankful for the opportunity that Karate Combat presented to me. And, you know, they were able to bring me and, you know, have me on their show and fight for them. So I'm signed with them long term. You know, I've signed a 2-year contract with them. So I'll be fighting with them for the extended future. And I'm just excited because, again, you know, the same like I was talking about Glory, you know, my goal was to fight the best and the elite. You know, now I'm presented with this other opportunity where I'm chasing down the elite of the karate world. You know, I want to beat all these guys. You know I have what it takes. So now it's just one by one, just everyone's a target and just go through the ranks. So I'm excited, man, just to compete against the best in the world. You know, I always joke, like, who's got it better than me? You know, I have, you know, I've got a good family. I've got a lot of friends. I have a lot of support. I have an amazing team. In my opinion, I've got the best team in the world, and I have an opportunity to shine and fight literally the best fighters in the world. And I'm so pumped to do it for Karate Combat. And I hope we can make this thing really big. So I'm just excited, man. It's good stuff.
I'm excited to see how Karate Combat progresses, and I'm excited to see you progress in Karate Combat, you know. So now, Ross, on that note, thank you very much, my man, for coming on the show and talking to me today and talking to me tonight, man. It's been a real pleasure.
Same here. I'm so glad that you reached out to me. You know, like I said, I know you've had a lot of my close friends on the show, so I'm happy. Anytime you want to grab me and do a podcast, man, I'm always here. I'll always make time for you guys. So thank you so much for doing that. I got to get you some turbo gear, man. We got to get you like one of these shirts. You got to get you the
definitely. I have to send you an MMA Reloaded shirt.
Yeah,
for sure.
let's exchange. We'll talk about that. Let's exchange. So everyone who's viewing, get yourself an MMA Reloaded shirt, and everybody in the UK, go to my website that we ship overseas, so you guys can get some gear.
Turbo shirt.
Yeah, you guys can get some gear. Shirt. Appreciate it. Yeah, I loved it, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you very much. Have a good night and have a good day. Thank